You are not lazy. If you sit down at your desk, open a fresh project, and immediately feel a heavy, dull fog roll over your mind, I need you to understand something critical. You do not have a discipline problem. You are not inherently lazy, unmotivated, or lacking willpower. What you are experiencing is the invisible tax of chronic overstimulation. Every single day, before you even attempt to do meaningful work, your brain is bombarded with thousands of micro inputs, notifications, algorithmically tuned short-form videos, endless threads, passive background noise, and instant messages. We have built an environment that constantly feeds high-potency dopamine into our nervous systems from the moment we wake up. Then, we sit down to read, write, design, or code, and wonder why our minds revolt. The fundamental mistake most creators make is treating focus as an act of brute force. They tell themselves, I just need to lock in harder. They buy another productivity planner, download another distraction blocking app, or drink another cup of coffee. But trying to focus an overstimulated brain through sheer effort is like trying to drive a car with the emergency brake fully engaged. You might force the engine to turn, but you are destroying the mechanism in the process. Real focus is not a muscle you strain, it is an environment you cultivate. When your internal baseline is set to hyperactivity, low input tasks, the exact tasks required to build deep skill, long-term wealth, and meaningful work are interpreted by your brain as literal physical distress. That friction isn't laziness, it is neurobiology. To understand how to fix your focus, you first have to understand how your brain measures reward. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure, as most pop psychology suggests. It is the molecule of anticipation and motivation. It is the chemical scale your brain uses to evaluate whether an action is worth the effort required to perform it. When you experience a sudden spike in dopamine, say from scrolling social media or receiving a notification, your brain immediately seeks balance, a state known as homeostasis. To counter the artificial high, it pulls down your baseline level of dopamine. The higher and more frequent the artificial spikes, the lower your natural baseline drops. Here is where the trap closes. When your baseline is low, normal everyday tasks feel unbearable. Reading a chapter of a book feels painfully slow. Outlining a video script feels tedious. Editing a sequence feels exhausting. Your brain looks at these low-input activities and compares them to the high-input environment you were in just 10 minutes earlier. By comparison, deep work feels like starvation. You aren't suffering from an inability to concentrate. You are suffering from a sensory withdrawal. Compounding this issue is the concept of attention residue. When you switch your attention from one context to another, checking a quick email while writing, or glancing at your phone while editing, your brain does not switch instantaneously. A portion of your cognitive bandwidth remains stuck on the previous task. If you switch context 20 times an hour, your brain is constantly operating with fragmented RAM. You aren't working with 100% of your cognitive capacity. You are working with whatever tiny percentage hasn't been burnt up by context switching. The second pillar is single task isolation. We live in an era where passive multitasking has become normalized. We listen to podcasts while doing chores, watch videos while eating, and keep 10 browser tabs open while writing. We have conditioned our brains to require secondary stimulation just to survive basic tasks. To reverse this, you must deliberately reintroduce monotropic focus. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you edit, close every tab that is not directly serving that edit. The mild discomfort you feel when doing something without secondary background noise is not boredom. It is the literal sensation of your dopamine baseline returning to normal. The third pillar is scheduled friction. Willpower is a finite resource, and relying on it to resist distraction is a losing strategy. The human brain will always take the path of least resistance toward dopamine. Therefore, your goal is not to resist temptation, but to make temptation physically inconvenient. Place your phone in another room while working. Use website blockers that require a long password to disable. Put friction between yourself and your bad habits. If accessing a distraction takes 30 seconds of physical effort instead of half a second, your conscious brain has time to step in and override the impulse. The fourth pillar is the most counterintuitive: strategic boredom. Neuroscience shows that when you stop consuming information, your brain activates a neural network called the default mode network. This is the region responsible for creative synthesis, problem solving, and emotional processing. If you never allow your brain to be bored, your default mode network never turns on. You stop generating original ideas because you are too busy consuming everyone else's. Schedule 15 minutes every single day with zero inputs. No phone, no audio, no reading. Just sit with your thoughts. This is where your best work is born. Knowing the theory is useless without execution, here is the exact 7-day protocol to reset your focus baseline. Days 1 and 2 are dedicated to an input audit. Do not change your behavior yet. Simply observe it. Write down every time you reach for a distraction, what triggered the urge, and how you felt right before doing it. You cannot fix what you do not measure. Days 3 through 5 are for environmental friction. Remove all social media apps from your primary devices. Place your phone in a drawer outside your workspace during work hours. Establish your 60-minute zero-input morning buffer. Days 6 and 7 are for baseline stabilization. Introduce 2 90-minute deep work blocks into your day with zero context switching. Notice how much lower the internal friction feels compared to day 1. During the first 48 hours of this protocol, your brain will fight you. You will feel restless, irritable, and an intense urge to check for updates or seek stimulation. Expect this. Welcome it. That restlessness is the physical proof that your brain is recalibrating. Once you cross the 72-hour mark, the fog begins to lift. Tasks that felt agonizingly slow suddenly feel engaging. Your natural curiosity returns. Creative ideas start flowing effortlessly again. At the end of the day, high creative performance and deep focus are not about doing more. They are about protecting your space so that your natural capacity can function without interference. You do not need more motivation, more coffee, or more complex productivity hacks. You simply need to lower the noise, respect your attention as your most valuable asset, and build an environment that honors your work. Protect your attention, and the results will take care of themselves.